Alright guys, so recently I've been getting lots of messages in the comment section and on Instagram, and it's all been about currency pair selection. It's been about what currency pairs should I be trading as a beginner, or how many currency pairs should I trade as a beginner. And I think this is a very important topic because you might have the best strategy out there, but if you're applying this strategy on the wrong pair, then it becomes very difficult. It becomes very messy for you. And also, when you guys ask me, or when people ask me, what's the best currency pairs to trade as a beginner, I might give you the pairs I'm trading, but these pairs might not align with the system you're using or with the strategy you're using. So it's very important to understand like the concept behind currency pair selection. You can't just pick any pair and start trading because you've gone through a mentorship program and you understand the system and you think it's going to apply to every pair. So currency pair selection is very important. It's a very big thing. Now I'm going to do a very quick explanation just so you can see my thought process when it comes to picking a pair to trade. Now let's use this simple analogy. So I have these pairs right here. I have the S&P, I have US Swiss franc, I have NZD USD, and I have Euro USD. So for a second, I'll just put this chart on Euro USD and I'll take this out for now. So let's hide this. So we have this blank chart and I'll explain something first. So if you understand this explanation, so you have to watch this all the way to the end for you to understand the currency pair selection thing. Now this is going to help you. It's going to solve a lot of problems for you. So let's say you have an athlete, and let's take basketball for example. So you have Steph Curry. So the basketball field looks something like this, and excuse my drawing. So this is how the basketball stadium looks like. So when you have an athlete that comes in, Steph Curry for example, he's the most elite 3-point shooters we have out there. I think one of the greatest of all time. So he's elite when it comes to shooting the 3-pointers. So you're looking at the stadium thing, it's like this, it's built this way. So you have this piece right here, and you have the little section where you're supposed to put the ball in. So this is what the court looks like. For those who do basketball, if you understand basketball, just hang in there and understand this piece. Now, as an athlete or as a basketball player, he comes in. So let's say on a set day, there's a game and he has to take 3-pointers, he has to do mid-range, he has to do layups, he has to do free throws. Now, before he became the best 3-point shooter out there, he didn't just walk in one day and start shooting 3-pointers. So he's one of the elite shooters out there, but he needed to understand what happens within these 4 corners right here. So he had to understand how the game is being played. He had to understand the rules, that's the rules of engagement. He had to understand the clock timing and everything. He had to understand what a turnover is, what a double dribble is. So there's certain things you have to understand before choosing your spot to even execute your shot. So for example, you can take shots here. So you can take, let's say you can do a layup here. You can do a free throw from an area like this, and once you come to areas, let's say outside, you're doing 3-pointers from this area. So you can shoot 3-pointers from these areas, and if you're playing within this structure like inside here, you can do mid-range shots from all areas like this. So understanding where to take these shots, it's all about, if you have to equate this to your trading, it's how you navigate with your system, it's how you navigate with your strategy. So let's take for example and say Steph is very good at taking 3-pointers from this area. So if this is his sweet spot and he is currently at this area right here, if he is at this area, he needs to understand how to navigate through the defenders and every other player. So you have other players within this structure right here. He needs to understand how to navigate, how to move past the screens, so he's going to run all to this point. So once he gets to this point, that's his sweet spot right there, then he takes the shot from that area. So what this is trying to tell you is, if you replace the basketball player with a trader, now the trader needs to understand everything that happens within the confinement of trading, your platform and everything, your strategy and all that. So the strategy helps you to navigate the price action. It helps you navigate the price action up until the point you get to your sweet spot where you're supposed to execute the short thing or the trade. So in this case for the basketball player, when he gets to this point, which is his sweet spot, he's going to take the 3-point shot from an area like this. Now for a trader, once you get to your sweet spot, you've seen the price action, your system or your strategy helps you navigate the price action. It helps you read price action to the point where you can execute it. So once you execute at this point as a basketball player, like Steph Curry for example, there's almost a 99% chance, or let's say 90% chance, he's going to make this 3-pointer if it's uncontested. So as a trader, if you have a system that works perfectly, you understand the system of the rule of engagement for your system, you understand how to navigate the price action, you get to the point where you have to execute. If you understand these things, then the execution becomes easy. Now, so you can navigate through this entire structure and everything. You still need to decide if you're doing a 3-pointer or you want to drive back into this area and do a layup, you do a mid-range and all those things. So bringing this back to a trader, the first thing you should be looking for is not the currency pair to trade. It's not what pair should I be trading right now as a beginner. You need to understand what happens within the confinement of your space. So what is the strategy? What is the strategy made up of? So if you're looking, let's say my case, I do impulse and then a correction and an impulse. So for the past 2 years, I've spent lots of time trying to understand the pullback. So the heavy lifting is done within these pullbacks. Now, once you have an understanding of how these pullbacks work, taking the next impulse becomes very easy. So the heavy lifting is done once the pullbacks are coming in. So as a trader, you're coming in today, you're still new, you need to understand what happens within the confinement of your industry or within the confinement of your space. You need to understand all those things first, and then the pair selection is going to come in easily. Now, if you understand the system you're working with, I'm going to emphasize on this. You need to understand the system you're working with, the strategy you're working with. So for me, it's an impulse, it's a correction, then an impulse. So that's my game plan right there. Impulse, correction, impulse. So once I see price action, I'm asking myself this question: how is price moving? So I'm looking at it like this: how is price moving? Can I navigate through this resistance? Can I navigate through this support and resistance up until the point where we're right here, the sweet spot for execution? So let's bring this now and then let's look at the chart. So if you understand this, you need to understand the system, you need to understand your strategy, you need to understand your edge in the market first, then comes the pair selection. So instead of asking me what pair should I be trading as a beginner, you should be asking questions like, what system can I work with? Or I'm having issues with this system. Can you help me tweak this? Can you help me modify this? Can you help me understand this system perfectly? Because once you understand the system, the pair selection becomes very easy. Now let's bring this chart again and I'll show you something right here. So we have 4 pairs right here. On this side, you have the S&P 500. Here you have US dollar Swiss franc. Here you have Euro USD, and on this side you have NZD USD. So you have 4 pairs right here. How do you pick the best pair to trade as a beginner? Now, if I tell you go and trade, let's say the S&P 500. So you're coming in new today, and the first thing I tell you is go trade the S&P 500. For some people, trading the S&P 500 is like a no-go area because it's very volatile. The moves are very crazy. So for some people, it looks like it's a very crazy pair for you to be trading. Now, there's lots of people who say, all right, cool, I'm going to trade Euro USD because it's easy. It takes time for it to move. It's not as aggressive when you're comparing it to the S&P 500. It's not as aggressive when you're comparing it to US 30. It's not as aggressive when you're comparing it to gold or to Bitcoin. So look at these pairs. You have 4 pairs right here, and I'm going to show you guys something. When you look at these pairs, for example, these pairs are now, I've taken FXCM. So I've taken FXCM, the liquidity provider, FXCM. If you look at it, it's common with all these pairs. So the reason I chose FXCM is because it gives you data from 1971. So if you look at it right here, there's 1971, 1971, 1971. So you're looking at data for over 50 years. So you have data for over 50 years sitting in front of you. You have a system to trade with, and my system, for example, I'm looking for an impulse, I'm looking for a correction, and I'm looking for the next impulsive move. So for over 50 years, you've had price doing its movement thing. It's been doing its movement thing. And when you look at the S&P 500, for example, you can tell for the past 50 years, this pair has been moving to the upside. Now you look at USD Swiss franc for the past 50 years, 50 plus years, it's been moving to the downside. You look at Euro USD, the movement has also been to the upside. But when you compare Euro USD, for example, and the S&P 500, they're both moving to the upside, but the movement on the S&P 500 is cleaner compared to what you're seeing on Euro USD. Now you look at NZD USD, you had a period where price was moving to the downside. You've had a period with price moving to the upside, and currently you have price moving to the downside. So if I tell you, for example, my system, it's an impulse, it's a correction, and it's an impulse, then if you have to apply this impulse, correction, impulse on a pair like NZD USD, this 50 years plus worth of data, it looks a little bit difficult. If you have to apply it on USD Swiss franc, this pair has been moving to the downside. Now, you can have an impulse correction in the opposite direction, but I'm very best when it comes to the impulse correction with bullish pairs. So, looking at this, I tell you the right trade. It's an impulse correction thing. And you've picked this system, you've understood the system, it's an impulse correction, and you're trying to apply this buying methodology on a pair like USD Swiss franc. It's going to be a little bit difficult because you have to apply it in the opposite direction with the sellers. Now, if you try to apply it on Euro USD, it's not going to be as smooth as compared to the S&P 500. And if you try to apply it on NZD USD compared to the S&P 500 again, it's going to be difficult. Now, let's tweak this a little bit. Now, let's move these pairs around. So we had USD Swiss franc, Euro USD. Now, let's switch this. I'll put NAS 100 here. Let's do NAS 100. So that's NAS 100 right there. And let's do US 30 on this side. So do US 30. Perfect. So I just want you guys to see the differences. And let's do gold, for example. Let's do gold on this other side. So XAUUSD. So I'll use Wanda for this one because Wanda gives you more price action. Now look at the similarities with these pairs I've taken. So with the S&P 500, 50 plus years, this pair has been moving to the upside. With NAS 100, 50 plus years, this pair has been moving to the upside. With US 30, 50 plus years, this pair has been moving to the upside. And with gold, for example, this pair has been moving to the upside, 50 plus years. Now, there is something that is particular about these pairs I've chosen. If you look at it, you've watched my market focus, for example, the videos I've done during my market focus. There's one thing I always talk about. I'm looking for an impulse, and I'm looking for a correction, and I'm looking for buys. I only want this in predominantly bullish pairs. So the S&P 500, NAS 100, US 30, gold, these are predominantly bullish pairs. So they have a characteristic in the way they move. So it's always an impulse and then it's a correction. You look at this on the S&P 500, it's an impulse, it's a correction, then you have the impulse. You look on NAS 100, it's an impulse, it's a correction, then you have an impulse. US 30, it's an impulse, it's a correction, then it's an impulse. Same thing with gold, impulse, correction, and then another impulsive move to the upside. You cannot beat this price action. This is something that has taken 50 years for you to see this price action. 50 plus years, I think like 54 years already, from 1971 to like 2025 as of today. It's 50 plus years for this piece of price action, for what you're seeing right here. This price action, impulse, correction, impulse, impulse, correction, impulse. Now, when you narrow down, let's take gold for example. Now, you've seen this predominantly bullish pairs. So the first thing I had to understand is, what is my system? So I traded different systems before. I've tried support and resistance, demand and supply, all these things. And with my system today, it's an impulse correction, combining this with psychological levels and trend lines. Now, I tried this on different pairs, GBPUSD, NZD-USD, AUD-USD, USD Swiss franc. I tried this on different pairs and I always had difficulties. So at the back of my mind, I'm looking for an impulse, a pullback, and then an impulse. And on some pairs, it's very easy to see this in this bullish direction. But once it comes to the opposite direction, it becomes difficult for me to see. So when I decided to pick certain pairs to work with, I had to go with something that's easy for my brain to assimilate compared to other pairs. So on the S&P 500, it's easy for me to see this impulse correction impulse, on NAS impulse correction impulse, US 30 impulse correction impulse, and then gold impulse correction impulse. Now if you pick gold, for example, let's put this on the monthly time frame. So if you use a simple, like the trend line thing I've been explaining, you have your trend line right here. So what happens is you have an impulse, you have a correction, you have an impulse. If you put a trend line again with the next phase right here, it's the same price action. It's an impulse, it's a correction, and it's an impulse. Now this is what's happening on the monthly time frame. If you step down to the weekly time frame, for example, you can do the same thing. You put a trend line within this other piece of price action. It's an impulse, it's a correction, and it's an impulse. So once you see something like this, because you understand the system already, it's easy for you to anticipate the pullbacks coming in, so you can do the next movement again to the upside. Now this is something that's happened for 50 plus years. And when I talk about predominantly bullish pairs, go look at these pairs: the S&P 500, NAS 100, US 30, look at gold, look at something like BTC. These are predominantly bullish pairs. For the past 2 years, I think, yeah, 2 years already, all I've been doing for the past 2 years is understanding the pullback that comes in. So I've spent lots of time just trying to understand the pullback. Now this has taken me 2+ years just trying to figure out how pullbacks come in and how to navigate around pullbacks. So if you look, I think I can show you guys this really quick. If you look right here in the community, I have something called the playbook right here. I have something called the playbook. So the playbook is simply the systems or the different forms of pullbacks. So if you look in here, you have different pullbacks or different forms of pullbacks. So for the past 2 years, I've been trying to perfect this impulse, correction, impulse, impulse, correction, impulse, and it has different ways it comes in. There's different ways it comes in. So if I pick this system where I'm doing an impulse and a correction impulse, and I give you this to trade on a pair like USD Swiss franc, that's predominantly bearish from what we've seen already, it's going to be very difficult for you. So you need to understand the system you're working with. You need to understand everything about that system, and then you start testing the system on different pairs. So I had to test the system on GBPUSD, I had to test the system on Forex pairs, I had to test it on metals, I had to test it on US oil, and I had to test it on crypto pairs as well. But when you look at BTC, you look at the S&P 500, you look at NAS, you look at US 30, it has this way of moving. It's always this impulse, correction, impulse, and it's clean compared to other pairs. Now for the other pairs, it's going to be in the opposite direction. Look at this piece right here. If you're looking at this piece, if you're looking at this piece right here, so just look at this piece of price action. I'm not even doing it correctly. If you look at this piece of price action moving to the upside, every piece, it's an impulse, it's a correction, then the explosive move comes in, then you get a correction, then the explosive move comes in. So my brain is wired already to look at the impulse, the correction, and the impulse. So if you take me to a market where it's moving to the downside, it's an impulse, it's a correction, and an impulse, I find it difficult operating in predominantly bearish markets compared to predominantly bullish markets. So when I came in, I wasn't looking for the pair to trade like in the beginning. I was looking for a system. I had to understand the system first, then applying the system on different pairs to see what pairs actually align with the system I'm working with. It takes a lot of time for you to test it out. So you can't just pick any system out there and think it's going to work on every, like the impulse correction thing, combining it with trend lines and psychological levels, it works on almost any pair. But there's certain pairs where it's like, it's flawless, it's easy for you to see. Now this is on the weekly time frame on gold. For example, this movement to the upside, if you move down to the daily time frame, you'll see the same thing: impulse correction, impulse correction, impulse correction, impulse correction. So it's the same thing. You move down to the daily time frame. Now the next piece, you're looking at this piece from here to this area, and you can do the same principle thing. It's an impulse, it's a correction, it's an impulse, it's a correction, impulse, correction. You can consider everything as an impulse, then this correction, then an impulse and a correction. So if you move down to the 8-hour time frame, I'll show you guys the same thing. On the 8-hour time frame, within this entire structure that looks like price is consolidating, it's an impulse, it's a correction, it's an impulse, it's a correction, it's an impulse, it's a correction. It fails. Once you get this fail right here, you're looking at the same thing. It's an impulse, everything coming down, it's a correction, and you're expecting another impulsive move to the upside. If you step down, let's say to the 4-hour time frame, for example, you look at everything, it's an impulse, it's a correction, and you're expecting the movement again to the upside. So I can show you guys this trade. I think we took this trade, let's see. So if you look at this trade right here, so I had this trade last week, if I'm not mistaken. It's an impulse, it's a correction, and I was expecting an impulse of price to take out this area. If you come and look at the price chart currently, that's the trade right there. It's been an impulse, that was a correction. We had the entries around an area like this, and price took out this highs. So the impulse correction was the first thing I had to understand. The pullback, I had to master the pullback. And I think for the past 2 years, I've been going really hard with these pullbacks, just understanding these pullbacks. And I realized if you look at these pullbacks, so you're looking at this on gold, you're looking at this on US 30, the S&P 500 and NAS 100, the impulse correction on these pairs, it's very clean compared to other pairs. And that's because these pairs are predominantly bullish pairs. So change the way you're asking questions out there. Instead of you asking, what pair should I be trading? Start asking yourself questions like, what is my system about? Like, what's the entirety of my system? If you understand the entirety of your system, every piece of your strategy, then you'll see that there's certain pairs where it's going to be very difficult for you to trade on. So me telling you the pairs I'm working with is not going to help you if you're not using the system I'm using. So understand your system, understand your strategy, then every other thing is going to align. Every other thing is going to become easy for you. So in as much as I have this understanding, in as much as I have these pairs I'm working with, I still take losses because it's inevitable. These losses are going to be there, but it's just going to help you learn the pairs perfectly. And that's why if you look at the market focus thing I've been doing for like the year of like 2024 coming to 2025, it's been the S&P 500, it's been NAS 100, it's been US 30, and it's been gold as well. So I've just focused on these pairs. Why? Because they're predominantly bullish. They move in this direction, and they move in this way. It's an impulse, correction, impulse. So all I had to do, understand the pullback. I've spent lots of time looking at these pullbacks, and if you apply it on these pairs, it's a game changer. So guys, that's it right there. Stop asking what currency pair should I trade as a beginner, or stop asking what's the best pair for you to trade as a beginner. Go through your mentorship program, look at the mentor you're working with right now or the person you're learning from, learn the system, learn everything about the system. Once you understand the system, once you understand the game plan, how to navigate price action, how to read price action, how to go through areas of support, areas of resistance, how to go through psychological levels, how to go through with Fibonacci levels. Once you understand these things, then you have to test it out on different pairs, and then price is going to tell you, it's going to tell you the best pairs to work with. So that's just the technical part of it. And if there's one other thing you need to add when doing your pair selection, I keep saying this all the time, you can be very good at doing technicals, but if spiritually you're not there yet, it's going to be difficult. There's certain things that you see on the chart and it comes like a revelation to you. So you need to be up there spiritually as well for you to understand certain things on the chart. So before I used to think trading is just technical, it's just fundamental, but there's a spiritual aspect to trading. So when doing your pair selection thing, pray as well. Ask the Lord to help you, to guide you while you're looking at this price action, while you're back testing, so you can pick the best pairs that works with your strategy. So that's something that worked for me. I knew the technical thing, but I was still struggling. But once I aligned my spirituality thing and the trading and everything, there's certain thing that's becoming very easy now. I'm looking at it and it's like there's a light bulb every time. So make sure you're praying and make sure you're asking the Lord to help you, to guide you, to pick the best pairs that aligns with your strategy as well. Alright guys, so that's my little explanation right there, and I hope this helps you out picking the best pairs for you to work with. So the impulse correction for me works on NAS, S&P, Gold, US30, BTC. The system you're trading might not align with these pairs. It might be based on Euro USD, GBPUSD, NZD USD, or AUD USD. So that's my explanation out there, and I hope it helps you, and I'll see you guys during the next one. Bye for now.